Okay, found my screwdriver. So the little, it's like a little pin with a small, small threaded area on the back. Okay, there's one on one side. Here's the other one. And then that handle will just lift off. Okay. Now there are 2 additional screws that need to be taken off. And this configuration should be the same for Singer, Silver Reed, Knitmaster, punch card machines. They might be slightly different, but overall it's a very similar design. Okay. Take that screw out. Okay. Now the next step is to remove this dial here. And first thing, put this, trying to remember, let's put that part in the center to begin. And you have to have the dial between 10 and 0. Then you should just be able to lift it up. And so you can see how that's keyed in there. There's a little slot that'll fit into the little bump in that metal peg. And so when you put it in, it's always going to be between 10 and 0. And then this part can be a little bit tricky. Put this lever all the way to the right, where I think it's a setting for Fair Isle. So, and you'll see there's a little metal bump, like something you can almost press down on it. It's like a little latch, like a spring, kind of like a leaf spring. So if you push down on it, you can lift up this little cylinder, just like that. And then that should come off. And putting it back on is the same way. You put it all the way, make sure that that's kind of underneath. And then on knit in, which is the same as Fair Isle. And that's how you would put it back in. But for now, we're going to keep that open. Now there's this piece of plastic here. Okay, depending on what model you have, there's probably 2 screws here on the back, so we'll have to take those out. And that feels like there's still something sticking. I think there's no more screws. It's just how that the plastic is kind of aligned. Oh yeah, that's right. So there's these little, at least on this one, yeah, these things that you might need to just push a little pressure on them as you're lifting it out. But it should come off, you know, pretty cleanly. So here's what we got. This actually doesn't look terrible compared to some that I've seen. And I don't think you shouldn't really have to remove any other mechanical pieces in order to clean. Just be aware that the slider will come off, so you don't want to lose that. And what that does is that when you push it to the right, it lifts up this little section. And what that does is that when you're knitting and if you want to get from one side of the bed to the other, but you don't want to knit the needles, or you don't want to do any action against the needles, you can lift it up and then move your carriage across, and it won't impact any of your stitches. Now, the reason why you can't just take off the carriage on these models when you're like in the middle of something is because of how it's attached to the needle bed. So it has this round cylindrical attachment that goes onto this round cylinder here, and so it stays attached unless you're at either end of the needle bed. And so if you're in the middle of something and you need to get your carriage off, say it jams or something, you got to flip this switch to the right, and then it'll allow you to move the carriage to either side, and then you can take it off. All right, so this thing, I mean, even though it doesn't look so bad, it's still kind of cruddy. So let me show you the best products I've found to clean. And you can get these on Amazon or from Grainger, like supplies. The first one's called LPS1. It's a spray lubricant. It's plastic safe, so you don't have to worry about it corroding or eating away at plastics like WD-40 does. So never use WD-40 near a knitting machine. But this will basically melt away all of the old grease. So back when these machines were made, they used something called lithium grease to lubricate all of these moving parts. And so like you can see how there's a lot of functionality in here, and it all needs to be lubricated well. So back in the 70s and the 80s, they didn't have modern spray lubricants. So they used lithium grease, which would have to be cleaned out and reapplied, like if not every year, then every couple of years. And over time, that grease would collect fibers and just debris and dirt, and it would get stuck. And so you'd get parts that would seize. And that's why this little drum, it doesn't spin freely like this one does. And it's kind of gross, but like that old grease has the consistency of earwax, and because when it oxidizes, it turns that like orangey color too. And so this LPS1, if you spray it on, it'll melt away that type of grease. And so, but this LPS1, it's kind of oily. I think it's mineral oil based. But it works really, really well. And usually I'll take an old toothbrush and I'll clean it with that. And so you want to use a ton of that LPS1, especially if something is stuck. And just what I do is I basically just spray it down and move it and keep spraying it. And also make sure you use gloves, because I've had some reaction on my hand. Nothing bad, but it just irritated my skin a little bit. And I also wore like a respirator too. Just, it doesn't smell that bad, but you kind of don't want to do it in a closed space. I've also like done it outside too, just for fresher air. But so you want to use a ton of that stuff to get everything nice and clean. You'll be surprised how nice it'll move after it's been cleaned with that. And then what I usually do is I kind of wipe off all the grease or all of the lubricant from the LPS1 with these like blue shop towels that you can just get anywhere. And once that's all kind of cleaned up as best as I can do, I'll spray this what's called LPS food grade silicone lubricant. So this is a different type of lubricant. This is best for your machine is clean and you just want to make sure everything is lubricated and not get any buildup, but still functions very smoothly. So I generally give this a pretty good spray on every mechanical moving part. Also, it's plastic safe, so you don't have to worry about it getting on plastic. So yeah, that's what I usually do with cleaning the carriage. Okay, And if you have any trouble with the patterning with these types of machines, it's likely something wrong with the carriage, not necessarily with this punch card reader. It's because on, you know, as opposed to the Brother machines, which has a lot more mechanical action, like in the machine itself, these Singer KnitMaster Studio machines, they're pretty simple in terms of what goes into the bed here. And so generally these parts don't really have many issues in the Singer KnitMaster models. But what I do anyway is that I still take this LPS, the food grade kind, and spray it down just to make sure everything is running smoothly. And then I'll feed in a punch card and make sure that that it's reading it. And once you feed in the punch card and start, you know, turning the levers to the right spot and turning it, you'll see these little pegs take the pattern from the card. So it's kind of cool. Yeah, so that's pretty much the basics of how I would begin to approach cleaning up one of these knitting machines. And then everything else from there would be just testing the different functions. Like, okay, so for example, here we have tuck, slip, stockinette, lace, and the knit in the Fair Isle. So I would go through the manuals to see how do you use each function, how do you use the function with the punch card to get a different pattern, and just try it and see, like, does it work? Are you getting what you expect? And then if you don't, or if you're having trouble, and then that's a separate issue, you know, to look up on its own. Okay. But as far as like, well, okay, say my machine now it's all cleaned up as far as I can tell. How do I use it? So let me get out a machine it's a Singer 155. So it's kind of like this. It's a punch card machine, but it's a bulky gauge. And that one is clean and ready to use. And so in one more video, I'll show you just basic setup of how to use one of these punch card machines.